Our next inductee this afternoon is Mr. Bert Padelt. Bert Padelt is being introduced today by John Kugler, who started ballooning in 1977. 40 plus years he's been flying. He started flying gas in 1991. It was very instrumental in the ammonia ballooning during his brief stint. It was a wonderful time that he was able to teach and learn with other pilots. I believe he and Bruce Comstock worked together with the ammonia balloons. Having built those balloons with Bert and Steve Fawcett and his gas training in ammonia balloons, he later joined Fawcett in his 10-year quest for the solo around the world tour. And from various places around the world, he competed in the 2000 World Padelt, and he was a team member of Troy Bradley's Pacific record that he just completed, or one of them that he just completed. Bert and John had co-piloted many American Challenge events together and have been friends since he was 17, a very young pup. And I'm very proud of his accomplishments. Mr. John Cooper.
I'm very happy to be here with this crew full of esteemed pilots. And hearing the stories and the intros, of course, that just builds on more stories. It wants me to tell more stories. I know I can't. Anyway, congratulations to all of the inductees. Fine job. Special congratulations to Bert and, of course, Joni Padelt, because she's had to put up with all of us for all these years. So, my charge is to introduce my dear friend and fellow pilot, Bert Padelt. His lifetime has been dedicated to ballooning. Since he was 17, you can read about it. He would tell me these stories that he was doing. Most normal guys at 17 were doing this. We're all off catting around somewhere else, Bert built balloons. But as a young man, he learned design characteristics, different materials, construction, and most importantly, he learned the history of ballooning, which he carried forward to today, and it helps him understand where the sport is now. Other great pilots in the world have noticed his accomplishments and have sought his ballooning expertise to set new world records based on his balloon building skills, craftsmanship, and creative ideas. Special note, Bert and I worked with Steve Fawcett on his 10-year quest around the world solo. That project took us to all points all around the world. And I might note, Peter, that kind of wherever we went, there was remnants of Julian's nut stuff and all these hangers. Julian's junk was strung out all around. Unbelievable. So, with all those travels, there's a host of stories. And some of them are pretty good. Some of them are pretty long. Most of them are not suitable for this introduction. I can assure you that Bert and I have forged a long and loyal friendship, not only with each other, but our fellow team members. As we sort of age gracefully, maybe, I'm not sure about that, the stories and friendships become more important. It's a lot easier to tell a story than it is to land a balloon at 30 miles an hour. A lot more fun to maybe have a beer and tell a story than be nursing a sore elbow or knee. And 20 years ago, when Bert was doing what he loved, flying, I'm sure the furthest thing from his mind was being inducted into the Hall of Fame. Well, Bert, this is your time. Enjoy it. Congratulations.
he's absolutely right. I never imagined that I would be sharing my name in the Hall of Fame with so many fantastic balloonists. And before I start, I would like to acknowledge Joan. I certainly had the love of ballooning long before we met, but it was Joni's support that is the reason I'm here, bar none. I'd also like to acknowledge my son, James, and his girlfriend, Mel, are here too. Thank you. So, it was Tony Fairbanks that taught me to fly gas balloons. And I had read about Tony my whole life once I got into ballooning, which was an early age. 10 years old, I think, I started reading books on ballooning, and it was Tony's name that kept popping up. And so I feel very privileged that I was able to hook up with the Fairbanks family and actually become a part of their family. And Tony, it was an incredible experience learning from someone with that kind of knowledge and history. And it was Tony that taught me the value of the history of ballooning and what it would teach me. And it was Tony that stressed the importance of promoting gas ballooning and keeping the sport going. And as Tony aged, I would take him flying as much as possible long after he had stopped flying himself. And he would jump at the chance to fly with me any time. He would jump in the basket. Even in his 80s, it was amazing how quickly he could, no doors in baskets back then. He would just jump over the side. And then I would watch him as he slowed down. And then it got to the point where he wasn't flying, couldn't fly anymore. And I thought about it, and it bothered me a little bit because I knew how much he loved ballooning. And so one day I asked him, I said, "Does it bother you that you're not flying?" And he looked at me and he said, "No, I have my memories." And I thought about that, and I thought how important that was. And so I'd like to share a few stories with you on some of the balloonists that inspired me and some of those special memories that I have. Starting with Ed Yost. Of course, along with Tony, I had certainly read a lot about Ed Yost as a child. And over the years, I would follow his exploits, and I was very much into the transatlantic balloon attempts that would take place. And shortly after his failed attempt, he came to NASA. My father was an engineer at NASA in Hampton, Virginia. And Ed knew some of the engineers at NASA, and he was invited to come and give a talk on his flight across the Atlantic. And I remember it well. What I really remember is my dad coming home and telling me that we were going to go meet Ed Yost, but I had to wear a coat and tie. And for a 16-year-old in the 70s, having to wear a coat and tie, I was devastated. But when we got there, the first person I saw was Ed. He was in a coat and tie, and I was relieved. And my dad had arranged for me to meet Ed after his talk. And so I remember that. And what I remember most is Ed, came up, shook my hand, told me how important it was that I was young and getting into ballooning. And then there were all of these adults around, and I was so awestruck I couldn't talk. And the adults came over and sort of took Ed away from me. And over the several years, I'd never met him again until 2002. And we were getting ready to fly in the America's Challenge. The balloon was inflated. Ed was there that year. And I remember there was no one around our basket. The balloon was inflated. And Joni pointed to me, and I looked up, and Ed was at my basket and looking inside the basket. So I immediately went over and I introduced myself again. I said, Ed, I'm Bert Padelt, and he looked at me and he said, I know who you are. And his only balloon on the field that year was a Sky Power, an old Sky Power invented balloon that Joe Kenny was flying. And it was right next to us, so I pointed over at Joe's balloon and I said, Ed, you make one hell of a gas balloon. And he looked at me and he smiled and he said, no, you do. And he pointed, and there were like 12 of my gas balloons on the other side of me. And we both started laughing, and Joni took the photograph. And it's my most prized photograph, and it's in the museum, if you guys want to take a look at that. It's one of the best photographs in my mind at Yost, because you don't see a lot of pictures of him smiling, and he was actually laughing, and it's sort of pretty cool. Another balloonist that I looked up to was Tracy Barnes, simply because of how creative his mind was. Before he came along, the balloons that were being built, including Ed's designs, they were all very utilitarian. And Tracy, he took the design of the hot air balloon to the next level and developed the first powerful burner, developed the parachute top, and then in addition to the design, he made it look good. And so I was always impressed with Tracy, to the point that I wanted to run away and work for Tracy Barnes when I was a kid. But I got to know Tracy very well in his last few years. And right before he passed away, he was developing an electric airship that was going to work all on drone technology. And he had asked if I would be interested in being involved in this project with him. And the last time that I saw him, I came to visit him at the Blimp Works. And I remember walking into his office, and he's sitting in the chair, and he's got this book in his hand. And it was Santos Dumont's My Airships. And he's just holding it, and then he looks at me, and he said, have you read this book, or do you have this book? And I said, yes. Looking back, I wished I had said no, because I think he wanted to give it to me. But no, I said yes, I read it, it's been a while. And he just said, okay, and he threw the book down. And that was that. And then we proceeded to talk a little bit. And then on this visit, it was a very special visit because Tracy really opened up to me. And in addition to spending time at the Blimp Works, we got on his golf cart and took me completely around his property like a little kid. He wanted to show me everything. And he took me to his house, which was very unique, that he designed and built. Took me inside, was showing me all kinds of special treasures that he had. And I compare it to Lyle Lovett's song. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Lyle Lovett, but those that are, Step Inside This House. He was like a little kid, you know, sharing all kinds of things with me. I don't know why, but he was. And then he took me to his sister's log cabin that he built, wanted to show me their log cabin. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. You know, Tracy, she made me sleep. Oh, no, it's all right, it's all right. And he took me inside. And then we get back to the Blimp Works, and just like that, it was over. He said, I've got to go get back to work, and I had to get back to Pennsylvania. And then he looked at me again, and it came full circle, and he started talking about the book again. And he said, you know, I think Santos Dumont was talking to me in this book. And I looked at him and I said, really? And he said, yes. And that's all he said, and he said goodbye, and I went home. And of course, the first thing I did was I pulled the book off the shelf and started reading it. And then I texted Tracy, and I've still got the text, and I'll always hang on to it. And I said, hey Tracy, as soon as I got home last weekend, I pulled this book off the shelf. I've been reading it, keeping in mind your comment on how you felt Santos Dumont was speaking to you. I think I understand. I would like to come down and spend a week with you when you start cutting out the heat sealing the gas cell. He answered in 10 words, start at page 35 and read the next 2 chapters. A very special memory. Last, I'd like to talk a little bit about Louie Reinhold. When I was, and Dewey's here, when I was, I think maybe 17 years old, it was Columbus Day, 1977. I heard this guy in Bar Harbor, Maine was getting ready to take off on a transatlantic flight. And I followed all of those flights, all the way from 1970 on. And by now I had it down to an art. I had a cassette, or a small reel-to-reel tape recorder, and an AM radio. And I would go to bed at night, set my alarm every 30 minutes, and pick up the news on all of these different AM radio channels, with the hopes that they would report on Dewey's flight, and then I would record it. I did this with a number of the attempts, I think starting with Dewey's. And I remember being upset because it was a government holiday and my dad wouldn't let me stay home from school to record these news reports. So he didn't make it, but I mention this because what Dewey did is more incredible than anyone now trying to fly a balloon across the Atlantic, because when he did it, it had not been done. And that is pretty, it's one thing to do something after it's been done, but to do something before it was done, it's incredible, and I'm honored to be able to say Dewey's a friend of mine. So we fast forward to 2018, the America's Challenge. Noah Fortin and I are going through our first sunset. And I get this text from Louie Reinhold. Hi guys, are you going through the night? My response, going through the night and thinking of you, Dewey. 13 bags and fully charged batteries. Wow, you're good to go. It has to be beautiful up there. We're all cheering for you. Good night. And that's when it really hit home. The man that I followed all those years earlier was now following me. Dewey, I'm honored to be accepted into the Hall of Fame and share my name with you and all of the other inductees. Thank you.